Hey everyone, so let's talk about the strategy pattern. Now, the strategy pattern is a really simple pattern to learn, and it follows a simple principle that you should be able to isolate and extend the algorithms on your domain in a simple way. So if we draw out what the strategy pattern looks like, we start with the strategy itself, which would be like an interface. Then we have the concrete strategies, and the concrete strategies are implementations of the strategy itself. So it will make more sense in a bit, but this is the main idea. We have a strategy, then we have concrete strategies. Out of the strategy, we have something that is called a context, which we will import and actually implement the strategy itself, right? And then we have the client, which would bring up the context and also implement the context. So if we take this idea and we expand it for a real use case, we have something that looks like this, right? We could have an authentication system, right? So auth strategy, then we have, for example, a Google auth, and then we have a Facebook auth, right? Which would be implementations of the auth strategy, right? Then we have the context, which could be something like login context, and then we have the implementation of the login context itself, right? So we have an easy way to implement different types of authentication. So for example, if we want to add a Twitter authentication, we could just extend this and implement a Twitter authentication, right? Which would also implement the authentication strategy. And we can use this pattern in different ways. So for example, we could have, I don't know, payment strategy, and the payment strategy could have PayPal, Stripe, credit, I don't know, maybe like direct credit card, right? And that would be like the payment context. So that's the idea. You can see that we can extend that and implement this in different ways. So the idea that I want to pass on today is the authentication strategy, just so you can see how things fit out and how we can actually implement this. So let me open my VS Code here. And so I have my VS Code open here, and the first thing that I want to implement is the auth strategy itself, which is the interface. So class, right? So in JavaScript, we don't have interfaces, so we implement that as class, and then we just create the methods that we want. And for now, let's just say that we don't want to, that the user shouldn't try to directly call the function. So basically we have auth strategy, and then we have the authenticate, right? Which we will actually call the authentication method. So inside here, let's just say throw new error. This method should be overridden, right? So we have the auth strategy set up. Then we have the concrete strategies, right? So we have Google auth, which will extend the auth strategy. And here, let's just say console log, user wants to log in using Google. So what we can do is then extend this to Facebook and Twitter. So as you can see, it's the same process, right? We have the Facebook auth, and then we have the Twitter auth, and then we can just say that the user wants to log in using Facebook and then just log in using Twitter, right? So we just wanna, I just wanna give you a simple example, right? This would basically, if we implement this on a real world scenario, we would trigger out all the dependencies or the services that we need to actually, for example, do the Facebook authentication. So next thing is to implement the login context. So class login context, we want to have a constructor. The constructor will actually receive the auth strategy that we want. So auth strategy with lowercase, and this dot auth strategy equals new auth strategy passing in the out strategy. So what we can actually do when we call login context is supply the concrete strategy, the instance of the concrete strategy itself, right? So basically what we can do is, so instead of actually calling new, let's just use out strategy, so we can directly just call that when we instance the login context. So what we can do now is do the authentication. So let's call do authentication, and then what we just do is out strategy dot authenticate, and that will trigger the login process. So we have everything created. Then what we can do is just call an instance of login context equals new login context, and then we need to supply the out strategy, right? Let's supply, for example, a Google authentication strategy. So Google Auth, and then we have everything that we need. So console log, we actually don't need console log because we are already logging out here. So login context dot do authentication, and if we save that, you can see that the user wants to log in using Google. It's working, right? We can do the same thing for Facebook, and then the same thing for Twitter. So as you can see, it's really simple to add other types of authentication, right? So if we wanna, for example, add a Instagram authentication, we can just extend this and say that we want to have Instagram authentication, and then we can just say user wants to log in using Instagram. So it's really quick to do changes and also extend your algorithms, right? And what I mean by algorithms is the authentication process, right? So yeah, as you can see, it's really simple and really quick to implement. And we could also use the same strategy for other scenarios. So for example, we could use that for payment. And as you can see, instead of having, for example, Google Auth, we could just have, for example, PayPal here. And instead of having an out strategy, we could have a payment strategy. And it's the same pattern. It's the same pattern, and it's useful depending on the scenario. So yeah, that was the idea that I wanted to bring out today, and I hope it makes sense. Have a good one.